storyteller. I have a new story. It's a little bit different, but it's one that I really want to tell. The first time Jim Schoettler looked into my eyes with his deep blue, intense but smiling eyes, my knees weakened and my heart melted. 58 and a half years later, the last time I looked into those blue eyes, he suddenly couldn't see me. Well, what can you say? My heart broke as the earth shattered beneath my feet. 5 months later, I was seated in the front seat of a friend's van, and we were following a flag-draped casket onto the asphalt road in Arlington National Cemetery. The casket was sitting on the top of the black caisson, pulled by 5 white horses. Ahead of it was an Air Force band, the men all dressed in their sort of drab, gray-blue Air Force uniforms, and there were flags flying. It was so quiet in Arlington, just the clop, clop, cloppity clop of the horses' hoofs on the asphalt and the staccato snapping of one drumstick against another as we marched on. The band struck up a song. I was sitting next to the window. My family was walking behind the van. I picked up my camera and put down the window and leaned out, snap, to take a picture, to get a good picture, a close-up picture of Jim's casket. Snap, snap. The horses turned a curve, headed on down the hill toward the grave site. Snap, snap, snap. Now, if Jim had been there, he would have been running alongside this van, taking those very pictures of whoever was ahead of us, because he believed that families needed to photograph important events, to record what was happening in the family. He'd been raised by his father in California, who was a really good amateur 1930s California photographer. And he had instilled in Jim this need to document. Snap, snap, snap. After that last picture, as I was leaning back into the car, I noticed in the side view mirror that I could see the family walking behind me. At that same moment, the band struck up a song. I noticed that the flags were flapping in the breeze. Snap, snap, snap. I turned back and I noticed the reflection in the side view mirror. It was my grandson, Dan. Tall, 6'1", strapping kid with red hair. You noticed him immediately in any crowd. I looked, snap. That'll look cute in the album. It'll be a little bit different. Snap, snap, to be sure. And then I looked all the way down to the road. He was wearing Jim's dancing shoes, shiny patent leather, snap, snap, dancing shoes with the tassels dancing as each step that Dan took. Snap, snap. I had given him those shoes. I gave him those shoes when I gave him Jim's tuxedo a few months before. It fit him perfectly. My eyes sort of blurred with tears as I looked at this reflection in the mirror. Dan looks like Jim, except for his red hair. And he was wearing Jim's shoes. I snapped again. I wanted to be sure that I had this picture. Wow. The procession moved on. It didn't take long to arrive at the graveside. The caisson stopped. The airman took out the box containing Jim's urn and marched over to the grave. There were only 50 mourners, specially invited, close friends and family. And we sat while the servicemen unfolded the flag, the American flag, and held it taut like a canopy over Jim's urn. The chaplain stepped up. Prayers were murmured. Words were said. It didn't take very long. The band played another song. 7 riflemen moved out to the side and they formed a line. Snap. I could hear my grandson Jamie taking pictures. Snap, snap. This would be recorded. Snap, snap. 3 volleys. 7 shooters 3 times. Comes down from the old signal when the battle stopped and they cleared the battlefield of the dead. And when everything was ready, they fired 3 volleys to let people know that the dead had been taken care of. That's part of the military funeral. At that, while they were folding the flag, precisely folding it, the bugler stepped off in the distance, and the sound of taps, those mellow, sad, and mournful notes sort of drifted up into the trees. The folding was finished. It was a taut, perfect triangle, blue with white stars. The tall airman took the flag and marched over to me. He knelt down on one knee, holding that flag with his white gloved hands, and placed it on my lap in my hands. On behalf of the President of the United States, we thank you for his service. He stood up. It was done. They began to march away. The airmen, guards, the band, the riflemen. I didn't move away so quickly. I knew that it had been signaled. The dead had been taken care of. But I sat there for a few more minutes. I knew that one chapter had closed. I stood and walked away knowing that another was opening. I just didn't know what it was. Thank you for coming. I hope you'll come back to hear another story.